So good morning, everybody, and welcome to our August Community Coffee Hour. We are going to be talking about building inclusive mentoring programs today, and we have three amazing special guests with us, two of which are actually joining us from Minnesota, and one of which is always going to be a Minnesotan at heart, but is in Boston now. So we have folks joining us from all over, which we're really excited about to be part of this conversation today. So if you are willing to and can, please introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to know who's with us today. Give us your name, if you're with a mentoring program, your role at your mentoring program, any other information that you would like to share, like pronouns, anything that would be helpful for us today. Please feel free to put that in the chat. And for those of you who are not yet familiar with us, we are Mentor Virginia. We are here to foster quality mentoring relationships that empower, elevate, and encourage young people across our state. We do this through a variety of different services. We are a hub for training for mentors, for youth, for program staff. We have AmeriCorps Vista volunteers across the state. We do no-cost consulting through our technical assistance program. And we have a national quality mentoring system program that we also have, which is really exciting because Nikki is the national director of the National Quality Mentoring System. So we have NQMS royalty with us today. So this is our lovely team here from Mentor Virginia. I did see our executive director, Dr. Virginia Patterson, on here. We also have our training and DEI manager, Timmy Spencer-Helms, with us. If anybody else from our team is here and I didn't see you, welcome. We're excited to have Timmy facilitate the panel conversation today. We'll hear from her in just a moment. And then we also have our fabulous team of consultants who do our TA work as well as our National Quality Mentoring System work and training. So they are a really dynamic group, really talented, and we are extremely grateful to have such expertise on our team that y'all can tap into at any time. And then you know, if you want to, again, in the chat, if there's something specific that brought you to this meeting, if there's a burning question that you have around building inclusive mentoring programs, anything about that, please do feel free to put this in the chat. I see a typo on the screen. I apologize. That was a holdover from the last coffee hour we did about retaining mentors. But if you have anything specific to today's topic, there will be a Q&A part of today's panel conversation. So if you want to put those questions in now, we'll get to them during that Q&A, or feel free at that point in the session to unmute yourself and be able to ask your questions then. So with that, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass the mic over to Tamise to introduce herself, and then we will also introduce our panelists for the day.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tamise Spencer-Helms, the Training and DEI Manager here at Mentor Virginia. Super excited about today's coffee hour and would love to introduce our guest speakers. We have Xavier, Vazquez, Jerod Petersen, and Nicki Patnaude. I'm still learning these names, guys. I've been here for maybe a little over 2 months. So I would love to have you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what got you into the work that we're discussing today. And let's start with Nikki.
Thank you, Tamise. My name is Nikki Patna. I'm the director of the National Quality Mentoring System at Mentor National, like Sarah said. Prior to my work at Mentor National, I did work at Mentor Minnesota, the affiliate in Minnesota. So I know Xavier and Jerod for quite a while, which is really great. And I got into this work around and sort of led the charge around this LGBTQ ally training and certificate work as, you know, we started talking about it when I was working locally at Mentor Minnesota, the ED at Mentor Minnesota now. Sarah worked at Boulder Options, and we were talking about how we could possibly integrate the LGBTQ supplement that Mentor had released into sort of the quality work that we were doing in Minnesota, because it wasn't necessarily happening at the national level quite yet. We wanted to kind of lead the front on that. And then I transitioned to national and I picked up that conversation again. And that's when I approached the folks in Minnesota and I said, hey, I have this really great pilot that I'm working on. I'd love to partner and continue this work and let's do it. And so worked with Sarah, got some really great program partners on board, and we are excited to talk a little bit about this today. So I'll leave the rest of that for conversation. I'm going to pass it to Jerod.
Yeah, so Jerod with Kids and Kinship in Minnesota, and I was drawn into the work. Mentor Minnesota has done some kind of groundwork where they've tried out things that kind of got then taken to the national mentor several times. They've been kind of the token program. They're like, here, try this. And so I kind of wanted to jump in early on something that I knew would get a lot of traction just because effective practice with supplement being added. I knew those would quickly become benchmarks when you go through your accreditation process. So I was eager for that reason, but also just to expand our inclusion and acceptance for program participants. So that was a big push of why I got involved. And like Nikki said, I was on the program service council with Mentor Minnesota, and I know what good work that association does. And I've been kind of proud to be a voice kind of at that table for several years. Kind of been with the Kinship affiliates for just shy, I think, of like 12 years.
And my name is Xavier Vazquez. You can call me Xavier, Xavier, Javier. I don't have a preference. I'm comfortable with any. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, moved here to Minnesota about 5 years ago. Started working with Boulder Options, and yeah, I fell in love with mentoring. Since then, I've been connected to Mentor Minnesota. Like Nikki said, Sarah Schaefer used to work with us at Boulder Options, and we had the opportunity to work with her. And then, as we found out the same way as Jerod said, like we are part of the Program Service Council in Mentor Minnesota. At this point, we wanted to have specific policies and programming to promote the space to the LGBTQ plus community at Boulder Options for a long time. But then we kind of like talked about it, developed a plan, and that's when Mentor Minnesota reached out to us saying that Mentor wanted to do a pilot program. And we felt it was meant to be, and here we are.
Thank you so much for that. I'm actually going to jump off from that and ask the question about each of your program inclusivity journeys. I know, Xavier, you just talked about that a little bit, but kind of could you talk a little bit more about the progress and the way that the journey took place in terms of really taking inclusivity seriously in each of your journeys? So I'll start with you, and then you can pass it back to Nikki, and then Jerod. I'm gonna just do it on my screen. You guys are a little triangle here.
Sounds good. So it started with that contact, and kind of like we're interested in doing it, and we brought it back to the team, and everybody was on board. So we're very lucky, we're blessed to like have the whole team like, let's do it. Then we went from evaluating and creating awareness internally to change our policies and procedures, and then to like change programming and professional development around our staff as well, and staff and stakeholders, include our board, mentees, mentors, caregivers. So since then, the progress that kind of like we've been having at Boulder Options is we administered that inclusivity assessment to like create awareness around our staff, and also identify who from staff were part of identify themselves as part of the LGBTQ plus community. We did this with our mentors and mentees as well. We identified the 10 priority areas for change in the organization. We identified the strengths. We created a committee that we had for a whole year, and then they actually identified their strengths, the things that they think they will bring into the team, into the committee, and then other people like kind of like supplemented what they said and also mentioned some strengths that they had. And then we identified quick wins. We had 11 new policies at Boulder Options around the LGBTQ plus community. And then with time, we've seen how the comfort level and like providing those safe spaces allowed like youth. We've had youth that have changed their pronouns through like this 2 years, and they feel really comfortable like talking about this to like all the other youth in the program, their mentors. We had youth that the first person that heard about they coming out was their mentor. So we're really proud of the work we've done with Mentor Minnesota and the other organizations that were partnering with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Nikki, could you share a little bit more about some of you all's progress?
Sure. So in 2015, Mentor National launched or released the 4th edition of the Elements of Effective Practice, sort of the research-informed and practitioner-approved sort of standards for creating quality or and sustaining quality youth mentoring programs in the field. And that was really based off of sort of research around, one really specific type of mentoring program, the one-to-one community-based mentoring program. And that's what led to eventually us releasing multiple supplements to the EEP around, group mentoring, peer mentoring, workplace mentoring, all of those things. But the LGBTQ supplement that was released in 2019 was really the first supplement that was released specifically for a certain type of young people, or a young people who identify with a different, or held a different identity. And it was a really groundbreaking piece of work, I thought. And back when I was doing our quality work on a local level in Minnesota, I just thought it was incredibly important that we really consider how young people are impacted by the policies and the practices that are happening in our mentoring program and what the implications are. And so I did a lot of informing and training and talking about sort of what the practices and the recommendations were going to be. We talked a lot about it at the local level around sort of what we were going to start asking mentoring programs to consider and how we wanted to integrate it into our quality work a little bit more in depth. And then, like I said, I had transitioned into the national work, and this work, we released the information or the supplement out into the public, but then really it kind of just didn't do much. And Dr. Christian Rummel, who was one of the key authors of the supplement, reached out to our team and was like, hey, so we released this, now what? And I'd like to start doing some work. So he and Mia Clark, who is a social worker who does work with Big Brothers Big Sisters and has done work with the Human Rights Campaign, and is just sort of a fabulous advocate for young people. They came to me, we worked together, and we developed this pilot to work with programs where we kind of walk them through the supplement, and we talk about what the different pieces of it are, and we kind of help programs, do sort of an identity check, both on a personal level and then a professional level, and then, at the programmatic level as well. And we're in our third round of working with mentoring programs. We have done 2 cohorts in Minnesota. We're doing a cohort now in Maryland, which is really exciting. And we're like thinking about how we can continue to make this grow. But we've had a really great experience with the programs that we've been working on this, as we've seen programs really take a really good self-examination of where they are and where they want to go and how we can be supportive of them in that journey. So it's just been really exciting to kind of be bits and pieces of it along the way, and then just to kind of shepherd the process along. It's been really exciting.
Wow, that's really awesome. Those cohorts sound amazing. Jerod, could you jump in on the same question?
Yeah, so similar to work with Boulder, kind of at that program level, the structure that Christian and Nia provided was probably a really pivotal piece for us continuing the work. I think a lot of programs are eager to do the work, but sometimes that can seem daunting. So it was structured, it had a plan, it had steps to follow, and it gave us that guidance. So similar, like Xavier was saying, just kind of a reflection time and an awareness piece. I will say that was maybe the biggest one for me, just to be in the community. I think I learned so many things, especially with youth statistics, that jumped out at me and kind of made this an obvious reason of why shouldn't we do this work and get some inclusion and acceptance policies and practices in place, just because I think it probably ties in with the mission of a lot of mentoring programs, to be there for youth, to help them, to give them a voice, make them feel seen, safe, accepted. So it really did tie in with just in general what our mission statement already says, and we needed to spell that out. So through the work with the cohort, we did that assessment, we did the reflection, became aware of some places where we could really strengthen that up for ourselves. We already did a lot of strong policy and procedure stuff, part of the accreditation and things like that. But that journey really strengthened that component, which were a mix of, similar to Boulder, we had quick wins, so adding pronouns, changing language and applications, changing the way that we maybe did some of our onboarding and training, both for families and mentors, creating some policies and procedures that we put in place, or kind of adjusting them to be more inclusive, kind of include that piece about why this also speaks to LGBTQ+.
Right, thank you. Thank you so much. So what I'm hearing is that it seems that there are two sort of ways that you all are making progress. One is in sort of the policy and procedure arena, and the other is that these cohorts create a space for structure and reflection and awareness in terms of the people that are kind of running these programs. I'm wondering, have you gotten any feedback from those who have implemented some of these things and what it actually looks and feels like to say, you know, we have an inclusive program? Do you have any stories or things like that that you can share with us?
For that, who are you throwing out to me? So I can take it quick.
I'm gonna take it from you. I'm going in this circle. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I have Jerod and Xavier here right here.
I was gonna say there's one here in Minnesota that we were really excited to be a part of the cohort, and also has probably done the most kind of outspoken work, and that was Queer Space. They are an actual program that is specifically for LGBTQ+ and volunteers. So kind of a cool program that came about. They were getting all of their stuff in place, meaning becoming a nonprofit and putting all that together and putting all the things in motion. So it was a real unique voice having the cohort, and one that I think I got a lot of energy from. You know, they got to take it and put all of this stuff into practice right away, where we were kind of incorporating pieces and little puzzle, you know, making it fit for what was already in place. But they were really had that ability to put all of this into their program model, which was, that'd be one win.
That's great. Anyone else have a story or?
Yeah, I'll say we had a really great mix of programs across the state participate. So we had some programs from some really metro urban areas, and then we had programs from sort of really rural, more conservative parts of the state as well. And, you know, there was one program that participated that there was a newer ED on staff who was really dedicated and wanted to be a part of this, fought to be a part of the program, but had some, you know, some staff and some board members who were from the previous, you know, executive director or leadership. And, you know, when they took this back, the learnings back to their community, had said like, oh, well, we don't serve those kids. Like those kids aren't in our communities, and faced some really tough and she said, you know, in these cohorts that we created spaces where people could share challenges, and she faced a lot of challenges when she brought things back to her organization that she wanted to implement. And it took a really, really long time for her to start to put some of those things into place. And, you know, so we met for about a year, you know, off and on, checking in with one another. And then a year and a half after we started the project, she reached out and she was able to, she declared for the first time in their program history that they were going to be celebrating Pride for June. So they were going to do participate in Pride events in their community. They were going to come out in support of Pride. They were going to kind of announce themselves as a program that was supporting for the first time in their community, which was really huge. When we started the pilot a year and a half ago, I don't think they would have been able to do that in the way that she wanted, but it took a really long time to get to that place. And so it's a, you know, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and it takes a long time to kind of put those things into place. And so we've definitely had some really quick wins and participations and successes in this. And then we've had a lot of struggle, and we've seen a lot of programs struggle with this as well, as they kind of think about how this really impacts. But at the end of the day, it really came down to the young people and how folks were serving them, and how we wanted to best support the young people that we're working with. And so that's kind of what really drove everybody in the participation of this.
Thank you for sharing that. Xavier, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I feel in how it looked like and felt like at Boulder Options was always including the most people that we can during the whole process, and kind of like just spreading the word, and we're doing this if you want to be part of this process. And we had a really good group in the community who had especially one of the youth. He's part of the LGBTQ+ community, and then he changed our orientation forms, he changed our matching forms, and it was just amazing to see all of that, not from us only, but to like see the input that we will receive, even though we got the training and everything. Things like we weren't maybe aware of, like things we really wanted to do differently at Boulder Options. But I feel in the organization, how we'll feel like and look like is you could have people, and this can happen, that wouldn't agree, let's say with pronouns and other things, right? But working with youth in the mentoring realm, there is something that everybody should have in common, and is we want to love, respect, and honor our youth. And everybody should have that in common if you're working in this space of like working with youth, right? And if we don't have this, we should maybe reconsider our working field. And if we do, then it shouldn't be that difficult to create and promote those safe spaces where our youth feel loved, respected, and honored. And after this are part of the base for inclusive programming, then we can train mentors and how to navigate certain conversations, and how the mentee safety is our priority, honor our youth confidentiality, and support them in any areas that they might need support with. But the base for us was like, for our staff, stakeholders, board members to know, like, this is, we want to do this, we want to do this, we believe in this. And from there we had tabling at Pride, for example. We had board members at Pride with us, staff members, and all the stakeholders, mentees, mentors, and caregivers supporting us in the process. But I feel when your youth know that your staff believe in what they do, they're like, I'm in, I want to do it too.
Thank you. So it seems like there's just so much intentionality on the part of the people, of your stakeholders and those who are working with your programs. And before we open it up to Q&A, if I was going to start to kind of implement some of this inclusivity in my program, where do I start? What would we do to get some of these things going in our programs? I know that we're here on the call, but what would be some next steps if we wanted to start to really think about inclusivity in our programs? And I'm going to toss it to Nikki, then Jerod, then Xavier.
That's a really great question. To start, I think you have to really take a good look at, you know, where your beliefs are and where you feel in terms of your comfort and your knowledge, and sort of where you sit with things, and then think a little bit about kind of where your, you know, like what your goals are and what your mission, you know, like what you would like to accomplish. And then, you know, kind of start to identify who are the people in the organization that you can partner with. And then really, you know, we talk about this work, you know, to sort of start within your organization. You know, building an ally committee is really an important step in kind of getting this work up and going. And that could be, you know, staff people within the organization, it could be board members, it could be mentors and mentees, having people come on board to really kind of help you think through what this could look like. And that could be then starting to think through sort of like where, and, you know, analyzing where you are now, what types of practices do you have in place, what needs to be changed, and kind of going from there. I saw a question pop up and I want to address it, but I'm not going to right now because I think we'll get to it in a little bit. But you know, there's just kind of a really great way to identify who can be on your team for this and who can help you through this, because there are going to be people who can help you along the way, and having sort of that group to kind of come to you when things pop up is really, really crucial and really important.
Thank you, Jerod.
So yeah, I mean, taking the ally committee was an important piece for us, and I think just the process that the cohort really kind of lined out was that you reflect, you assess, you make change, adjust, and you just keep that process going. It by no means stops. You always make changes. Things will come up in your program. Dynamics that you weren't kind of planning on or weren't even on your radar might come to the surface. And I say that because I also had to, in the beginning, kind of make the case of why I should be a representative for the cohort panel to get involved to the conversation of, we don't serve a lot of LGBTQ youth. So, I mean, how many kids will we actually be serving? But to the point, during the awareness project and statistics that were shared with us, and I think are out there for those who are curious, for LGBTQ plus youth, very stark, just places that they might have in terms of barriers, homelessness, isolation, depression, attempted suicide. So when you think of a youth who might need mentoring programs, or those adults step up for them, those are those youth. So even if it's that one kid, we're going to advocate and fight for them like we do all the other kids. So it was an easy sell after that. And then I agree, just folding in partners so that you're not doing it alone. If you have other programs who want to do the work alongside you, it really does keep the momentum going. And when you get stuck, you can throw your ideas to them and be like, hey, how did you do that? Or when that happened in your program, did you guys kind of scramble to put something in place? Or did you have a plan and what did you follow? That was really a benefit for our program, because they came up in my program as the work was going on, but Space had some really good resources that too. Xavier had some really great kind of policies that we borrowed and made our own. So that was an important part for us. But I would say also the more important thing, just outside of planning and changing, is the reminder that we're gatekeepers first and foremost, and we want to do more good for the kids that we serve than harm. So you really are looking for those people who you clearly see have those heavy values and are going to be very vocal in a way that you don't want to be a part of your brand. It's really important that you screen them out. I think that stands for any, doesn't matter what issues at hand. It's like, if they aren't going to be a good fit for the families that you serve, let's just not bring them to the table. So that would be my other piece outside of larger LGBT.
Yes, and I think I will start with being open to learning and making mistakes in the process. One of the things that scare people the most is the fear of like making mistakes and not feeling inclusive because of those. And we will make mistakes, and those times we can also be humble and apologize and like learn from them and work with it. Another thing to have in mind is like trying to be open-minded and understanding about why people believe a certain way without risking our youth safety in the program, right? For example, when it comes to caregivers not being inclusive of the LGBTQ plus community, we always like try to find out like, why does it happen? Is it because of a safety concern of the youth? Is it because like maybe there is a risk of this youth being harmed at home by another family member because that other family member is not supporting, and this caregiver just having the good intention of like not risking their safety at home? Is it because of like religious beliefs? So like, what is it? And then from there, we kind of like work with like, let them know that that's our priority at Older Options, is for them to have a safe space. If we want to like respect that at home, and then maybe because of that risky like concern, like that concern from the youth safety, but then here that they know that they can be who they are, and we're gonna honor who they are. Also the how to do it, and like Jerod said, connecting with other organizations around that did it already. This will give you the opportunity to not reinvent the wheel, and spend more time with other things that might come up in the process. And they will take out the pressure of brainstorming about certain things that could take away from that time of like, for you to like brainstorm for innovative ideas. And who knows, you can bring those new ideas to the organizations that are already collaborating with you from the beginning, and maybe support them with the struggles that they still might have.
Thank you, Xavier. Yeah, Jerod, I liked what you said. You mentioned 4 things: reflect, assess, make change, and adjust. And I really like that, because it is sort of a posture of intentionality and learning that I think is really important in this work. And I'm not sure if everyone is seeing what Nikki has posted in the chat, but it is truly life-saving work that we're doing. In studying some of these things, realizing that some of this is, you know, inadvertently, it's suicide prevention work that we're doing. And so thank you all for all that you've been doing and for the strides that you've been making. We're going to open it up now to questions from those who are on the call. I think, Sarah, if you want to field questions that are coming up in the chat, and I have a question that I'd love to kick it off with, because obviously we're in primary time. And so how are we handling some of these conversations in our work in the era of Don't Say Gay bills and things like that, that students and youth are experiencing? How are you all navigating that in the work that you're doing? And then we're just going to open it up. And anyone can answer.
I don't know if I have a long answer, but I mean, just to the work of this cohort and creating the ally team, I think for us in our program, we came from a very established program with a lot of history, which has evolved over the years, thankfully. And again, this is another evolution, which I'm glad we have made. But I think it is really making sure that we are showing up and being inclusive and being there for the kids. Like I spoke to before, it's already in our mission line. It's just speaking to the type of kid that we want to make sure that's the table. So for me, that's a big part of an opposition of the Don't Say Gay. It's being present and being affirmative and making sure the kids know they are of value, they are seen, and they can be a part of my own.
It's certainly a lot to think about, but we're going to let you all ask some questions here. There's a lot of wealth of knowledge here on the call, so I'm learning a lot myself.
So there are a few questions in the chat so far. One from Pam earlier in this call. Nikki, I think this was the one that you were hinting at that you could speak to a little bit. But the question is, you know, basically, is there a written step-by-step process for this work that Pam would be able to bring to her program to kind of help them in the journey of incorporating some of these changes?
So the only thing I can point to right now that is written is the LGBTQ supplement. There's a checklist that you can download off of our website that kind of goes, that you can kind of walk through and check off. We don't have a step-by-step guide yet for the work that we've been doing in terms of our pilot that we've been doing with folks. But as we expand this work, we've been thinking about how we can maybe package some of that out so folks can access to it. But as Jerod and as Xavier have been saying, is, you know, being a part of a cohort and having sort of that supportive community has been really helpful for folks as they've been doing that. So we're trying to figure out a really great way to incorporate some of that into this, because that is a really key component in this work, is knowing that you're not doing this alone and that you do have a network of folks that you can reach out to who are also doing this work with you.
Yes, on the programming side, so we started with the training. That supplement from Mentor is amazing because we tried for bolder options before having the supplement. We tried to bolder options to like fitting every like category and kind of like have everything that we have there in the elements of effective practice of mentoring. And then with this supplement, we did kind of like the same thing. We were like, okay, we divided our committee, and then we're gonna like assess the organization and see where we're at. Like, do we have this? Do we have this? Do we have this? And then the things that we said no, we developed a plan to like work on those. But also our trainers, Nia and Christian, they gave us an inclusivity action plan. And it was life-changing. That plan, like we followed that plan completely through the whole year with the committee. And to the point that with that plan, like right now, we recently became certified to work with people with disabilities, and we're doing like another committee, and then we're doing other things. And we use this plan structure that Nia and Kristen gave us to kind of like lead the other committee too. So it has helped us in other areas as well. So it has been it was a very structured and well thought plan, and we're really grateful for it.
We're also looking, and they don't know this quite yet, but folks who've gone through the first couple of pilots, we're in one of the things that we're talking about is activating them as potential technical assistance providers to work with programs who might be interested in doing this work. They don't know this, but it's something that we've been talking about because they are experts. They've gone through this process, they've experienced it, they've lived it. They could help programs that are interested in doing this work possibly do this. So watch your emails, guys. We might be reaching out, and that would be working with, through Christian and Nia, who we talk a lot about, but they would be the ones that kind of support the work and kind of activate people out through this. But it's something that we've talked a lot about because they have the lived experience and the knowledge, and they'll have the support, the continued support to kind of then help continue support other folks as they go through this. So you can apply for TA now and get help from the existing folks, but we are looking at how we can activate the people that have gone through this work already.
That's awesome. I think there's a question in the chat. Sarah, did you see that one?
Yes, from Rachel. So it says, can you expand a little more on how do you all navigate the family aspect of your mentoring programs, especially if the families are against their children learning about LGBTQ+ matters? I think there's a fear that a family will pull their child away from a mentor or safe space that this child really needs because they read a book with an LGBTQ+ character with their mentor, or disclose something about their sexuality or gender identity to their mentor.
And I can start here. And this is what we do at Bolder Options, right? But we always tell them that Bolder Options is that place that promotes safe spaces for our youth and our community. And it is our responsibility to honor our youth true selves. That being said, like I mentioned before, we try to like find out what's the root of like this thought. And if it comes from a safety concern, if it comes from just a belief, if there's something, and we give them, as we hear the why they believe that way, we also give them the why we believe in what we do. And that might lead to like different conversation about like, this is not about us trying to implement any beliefs. This is about us trying to honor, love, and respect your youth. And that is all that matters for us. And we address each case differently. And if we don't know how to address something, because sometimes it can happen, we reach out to like other partners like Jerod and other cohort organizations and for input. And ultimately, that's part of our policies. But ultimately, if anyone wants to get involved with Bolder Options and is not supportive in the way that it can cause harm to other youth, caregivers, and mentors around, then unfortunately, we'll like refer them to like other services, but they cannot be part of Bolder Options because we cannot risk our youth safety at Bolder Options because someone is not inclusive and can come to an event and make comments or do something around that will cause harm to others. We're very protective about that in our program. Yeah, but those are kind of like part of our policies at Boulder Options.
Everything Xavier said, and then maybe for a more indirect route of kind of how you can provide that is just the visibility piece. So where it shows up in on your website, or where it shows up in the resources that are going out. It doesn't have to be a confrontation by any means, and it can be, you can give them space to self-screen. So if you're thinking that it's gonna be a real tense conversation, often people won't be a part of something that the values don't align with. So that's an easy way for them to do that on their own. So we've really been intentional. National gave us the badge for being an accepting, forget what the languages all tied into that, but it's kind of all the pride colors. And then we went with that cohort, certified program doing that work. So that's on our webpage. It's been included in our resources that go out on a monthly basis to both families and mentors. And I will just say on the flip side of, we do screen and gatekeep for volunteers from the program, and to that point, we'll do the same for families. If they aren't open to expanding and being more accepting, then that is a definite no. But just because of the stuff we've added into our intake calls and our application process, our home visit steps, I've actually had some really fun things happen that I have in the many years that I've been with Kids in Kinship and I've done home visits. I think I've had two of the coolest situations arise for the family, the parent one time, and actually the kid one time. I just mentioned how open and accepting they are of all people. And I was just like, what a cool place for them to have that platform to begin to, them being accepting. And it's like, it's not us preaching it. It's the family telling me, I already am. Like, I'm happy. I just want to make sure the person that I get matched with is the same. So I will say it can be a win. Don't always have to.
Awesome. I'm just kind of in awe of the work that you all are doing as a person who is a part of the LGBT community, and hearing you all talk about this. I'm wondering if you all have issues in terms of recruiting folks who are of the LGBT community as mentors. How is that working? Are you getting mentors? Are you running into issues with parents in having mentors that identify as LGBT?
As part of the work that we did with this cohort, and like Jerod mentioned, we made part, we kind of like included in our processes for screening and recruitment, those areas that will like screen people to see if they're inclusive of the LGBTQ+ community at Boulder Options, right? And I would say we got a couple mentors from Pride, and at least for now, like all our caregivers and not all of them, but most of them has been very inclusive with the process, and this is what we're doing. This is what we want to do as an organization, and this is our responsibility. We navigated one of the caregivers that being inclusive, and then we kind of like we went there and with the why we're doing this, and then they agreed, and they're like, yeah, I completely understand. And it was like the best case scenario. So we're lucky that we had that experience. But also in the process of recruitment and training and screening, we inform and train them in the creation and promotion of this safe spaces, especially for mentors. And then they might be the first one to know maybe about their mentee coming out, and how to navigate those conversations. And like we said too, in the screening process, we protect our youth from volunteers that might exhibit homophobic, biphobic, transphobic, and values or behaviors. So we are pretty strict in our process when we recruit volunteers and screen them, but also with our mentees and caregivers. and board members. Like it's incredible sometimes how we say, oh no, like this is just for whoever comes to Boulder Options and want to be part of it. But we definitely, like, this is what we're doing, and it includes everybody. It includes board members, it includes staff members, and like if you're gonna cause harm at the organization, then it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a funder, like you have to go. It sounds harsh, but that's how we want to do things.
And I will say for us, that is still a point that we are trying to expand. So we are outside of the metro kind of pool. We're out in a suburb, so we don't have the luxury of having the Pride as kind of our recruitment tool. And so we're, as I said before, it's that reflecting and assessing how we can change. And some of that's been really slow, and some of the things have really taken off. So that's the point where we're still trying to expand. We're trying to make some connections. We've done more connecting with referral courses that are mental health providers that are accepting. So definitely on the youth side, we've made a lot of progress, but volunteer side is a growth area. But I will just say, kind of to the other ways that this can be a part of the conversation, for our ally committee, we had a corporate representative come and join, just as these outside ears and eyes. They don't know mentoring. They're not like a service provider. It was a parent of a trans youth. And so it was this really unique set of eyes and ears. And they have provided for us probably the most insightful kind of, here's what we're doing. And they're like, why does that have to be spelled out like that? They're just kind of like, I get what you're doing, but you can also just do this. And so they're kind of that parent. They're the dynamic of having and raising a trans youth. It's kind of a unique conversation that lends itself to that recruitment and the service for what service we provide to the families. And kind of that was kind of a tangent, but it came up when you talked about work.
No, that was great. Thank you for sharing that.
All right.
That's great. Oh, Nikki, I see that you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and also through the work of this, we've Mentor is going to be developing a partnership with the Human Rights Campaign and their Project Thrive, which is a project to support LGBTQ+ youth. And part of that partnership work that we're thinking about doing is really around how can we be recruiting and retaining mentors that are LGBTQ, because oftentimes, like you said, we are focusing a lot around the safety of the young people, which is of course paramount and very important to the work that we do. But a lot of times we are missing that mentor piece of it too. And how do we make sure that we're showing that we're safe places for LGBTQ+ mentors to come into our programs as well. So we're going to be working with them on figuring out what are some of the practices and things that we can do to recommend for training, for recruiting, for screening, all of those types of things, so that we can try to make sure that our spaces are inclusive for everybody that wants to come in and be a part of our mentoring programs. Because there's lots of things that can happen that can deteriorate that trust, and we want to make sure that we are working with everybody from all different layers to make sure that folks feel safe no matter where they're coming into the mentoring programs. So that's just some of the great work that we've been able to do to kind of be a partner. Yeah, Michael, HRC is a really great is a great resource, but we're going to be making some really great partnerships with them going forward. So I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. I think we have one more question from Nick.
We have two questions. We had one from Nick and one from Virginia. Virginia actually posted first, if we want to.
Okay.
So we have about 7 minutes or so to answer both questions. So the first one from Virginia is, have you had anyone say you are discriminating against them when your organization may exclude others who are not aligned with your mission? And does your policy cover this?
And I can start with this question. We haven't had the experience of anyone that we haven't that experience yet, but this is something we've talked about a lot, and we're not using it only with volunteers and whoever's coming to the organization. We're using it also for staff. We want to make sure when we say promote safe spaces for everybody, and we mean for everybody. if you don't like, we're being very intentional with staff about like, if you have a certain belief, let us know. The ultimate goal, like our goal is to keep our youth's safety. It doesn't matter who it is, like, but we want you to have the safe space to talk to us about it. But if at the end we're having our policies, if you are gonna cause harm to our youth because of that thought or belief, you're gonna cause harm in certain way, then you cannot be part of Boulder Options. But that is like, we're not saying you gotta change your beliefs. We are saying if you cause harm or you're gonna cause harm to our youth, then you cannot be part of Boulder Options. But that is basically how we will navigate the conversations around there. And we do have policies around it when it comes to like LGBTQ plus youth and youth of colors too.
I guess for us, I've been able to become aware of some dynamics that I otherwise would have not been privy to. Even though we do our supervision and we do our check-ins, make sure the matches are doing okay. I was able to hear directly from the source, and it happened to be 2 volunteers through this process. Actually, one who didn't even know we were doing the work. It was a dynamic that was coming up in the match, and I just so happened I learned the moving pieces, and it was a kid who was coming out as bi. The mentor was throwing stuff at them that was not going to do any good in any way. So I was able to kind of, in all of our work, I actually took that to our cohort, and I was like, guys, this is the situation. I know we've been talking about it. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, but kind of tackle that one in the hub. You know, so if you're part of a cohort, you're going to work in the hub with other partners. But the other one was a mentor who was very vocal, had beliefs and values, and she made it very clear that not what she believed, but exactly to Xavier's point, that doesn't go with where we're going. It's not who we are or who we're becoming. So they had the relationship when we closed the match formally, and we just asked them to, if they wanted to meet, they could meet outside of our program, but that doesn't align with our vision, kind of essentially. It was much more polished and of course included some sensitive language, but that's kind of what we told them.
All right, and for Nick's question, how do you navigate the separation or mitigation of a mentoring partnership when a student opens up to a mentor and shares that they are part of the LGBTQ plus community, but the mentor rejects due to their personal beliefs and seeks a different mentee? Nick is with the VCU Business School mentoring program and says, while he hasn't seen this yet, we have a lot of students who may fall into this category, want to be prepared for such a situation.
And I can start with the first question, but at this point, so we go through the screening process to make sure that they're aligned with respecting, honoring the LGBTQ plus youth, right? But let's say you're in the process of implementing something and you already had mentors in the program without the screening process because it came after screening this mentor. And the mentor says, I want a different mentee because I don't believe in this, I don't support it. Our priority here is the youth. It's getting that youth rematch, and then the mentor, and it happens in every way. Like, let's say we have a pair that close prematurely. We ask the mentee if they want to be rematched with someone else, and then we don't rematch the mentor because the youth has been rematched with another person. And it would be weird to see an old mentor around, and especially like if you are from the community and you know you got separated because of that. But our priority is the youth, and it's like, hey, we would like to find another mentor for you, and then we address this on an individual basis. We haven't had the experience, but how I can see this coming is we're going to match you with another mentor, and kind of like giving priority to the youth of the rematching. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your questions, Nick.
Just throw in. So policies are always great to fall back on, and it's, every dynamic that comes up, you have to respond sensitively to, and it will be nuanced. But a policy is a really great guide for this is the benchmark, this is our process, and it's what you kind of follow, so that doesn't always get messy. So that was one of our biggest, most of our monthly sessions for our ally committee was around, I think 3 or 4 months was spent talking about a confidentiality policy, which was tied to then, it was like a behind the scenes tied to this confidentiality policy. If this issue comes up, these are how the team's going to respond. And it was a great template. I did have to fall back on that once already. So I think speaking into that situation might be worth exploring some of those options. But again, Xavier made a good point, you know, think sensitively and intentionally about how you want to respond, and you just get more confident the next time that situation comes up. So how do you want to respond before it happens is probably the most important piece, so that when it does, you're not caught off guard and you kind of have a plan.
And like the question says too, like it says rejection from the mentor to the youth because of their beliefs. So when it comes to rejections, for us, it's considered you're causing harm because you're rejecting a youth. So that falls under the policies like Jerod said.
So we did have one more question pop into the chat, and we are going to address that in just a moment. But before we do, just in case anybody has to hop off right at 10, I'm going to launch a quick poll that's going to ask what you all want to discuss at our September community coffee hour. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this, and if y'all will vote, we have 3 options for you. Would you like to talk about different options and kind of software platforms you can use to manage your program data? Would you like to talk about targeted strategies for recruiting Black men as mentors, or creative ideas for increasing your year-end giving kind of fundraising campaigns and such?
Do we get to vote too?
Sure. Yeah, you have to join us though if you vote. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this because everybody voted. So it looks like we will be talking about targeted strategies for recruiting Black men as mentors next month. So in our last minute or so here for our panelists, Pam has asked, do your mentors fill out an application, and do you have questions on the application that address LGBTQ+ areas?
So yes, volunteers have to fill out an application, and we have folded in inclusive ways for them to respond, but not necessarily anything that speaks to their desire to enter an LGBTQ+ youth. So hopefully I'm responding to that correctly. So we've amended and made our application more inclusive, but I don't think we've made it like a target response by any means of how they can do that. Just and providing the language. But our process entails more than just application, of course, but a lot of programs at the table. It's an application, training, interview, all those things have little components tied in that we have expanded conversation.
Yeah, in our application, we do have questions about, are you part of the LGBT, do you identify as LGBTQ+? Do you feel okay being matched with an LGBTQ+ youth? Do you feel, how do you feel about like being matched with a youth that has a different gender from yourself? And then qualify with that application, we follow up in the interview. And kind of like, hey, I noticed that you answered this in the application, like, will you expand on that? And as part of the interview, we have like those kind of like conversations, navigating those before we accept the mentor.
And the LGBTQ+ supplement also includes recommendations for along the way around in the screening, the recruiting, the screening, and then also in the training portions around how you can kind of put some places in there for helping to kind of maybe screen folks out of the process if they might exhibit homophobic, biphobic, transphobic behavior or anything like that, or like where are some places where you can put in some of those indicators.
I think that going with that, Nikki, if you follow that supplement, it will be very, very, very hard to like miss something in your processes. So I would definitely recommend using it as much as you can.
And Nikki, really quickly, when might be the next opportunity for our Virginia programs to participate in a cohort together to kind of work on their inclusivity?
That's a great question. Next year, we're wrapping up our last cohort for this, and then we are going to probably launch one. We might do one additional one this fall, winter, but definitely in the new year, we're going to be doing a bunch more. So we're excited about that.
Okay, so stay tuned, folks. There might be an opportunity coming to really engage in a cohort style, way to do this work together in our state. So really appreciate Jerod, Nikki, and Xavier for joining us today. Thank you, Denise, for facilitating this great conversation, and for the folks who stayed on a little bit longer past our 10 o'clock. We hope to see you at next month's Community Coffee Hour, and hope you have a great rest of your August, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, all.
Have a good one.
Thank you all.